Las Cruces High School teacher pleading guilty to sexually assaulting two of his female students. A federal jury awarded one of those victims $44 million.
Yeah, but now the victims are saying their justice has been taken away. Tonight in a Target 7 investigation, lost justice. We find out why. Here's John Cardinelli.
This is Patrick Howard. He was the agriculture teacher at Las Cruces High School and admitted to groping his students. But he's not considered a convicted felon, he's not a registered sex offender, and he could go on to teach if he wanted to. These are the reasons why his victims say they lost their justice.
I had nightmares because of it. I was afraid to sleep for a really long time.
These are some of the victims of former Las Cruces High School teacher Patrick Howard.
I have really severe anxiety and depression now from this. I also have a really hard time with physical touch. Like, it sends me into panic attacks sometimes.
And this is where they say he touched them while they were sophomores at Las Cruces High School. These are pictures of mannequins that were shown to a federal jury.
I don't think children should be worried about whether or not they're going to get sexually assaulted at school.
Howard admitted to touching them on field trips like this one to the governor's office. Here, he has his hand on one of the victims, who says he touched her while on this trip. This is a picture from inside the van they took.
I had no idea what to do. Honestly, I just knew that something felt very wrong.
I noticed a difference in my daughter's demeanor.
After learning of his daughter being touched, Lane went to the school principal and told him something needed to be done.
I was furious. This was a man that I trusted with my daughter.
Howard was placed on leave, the police got involved, and a grand jury indicted him on 4 felonies of criminal sexual contact of a minor. But the community in Las Cruces rallied behind him.
Through the criminal investigation, there were Free Howard signs all over the school.
In May 2021, Howard reached a plea agreement with the district attorney's office. He pled to 1 felony and a petty misdemeanor. He was placed on 5 years of probation.
I felt that it was a slap on the hand.
The agreement was called a conditional discharge. Under New Mexico law, it means the person is not considered convicted, assuming they complete their probation. And Howard didn't have to register as a sex offender. Las Cruces District Court Judge Douglas Driggers also made this special accommodation for him. He could possess firearms, drink alcohol, and attend Aggie football and basketball games, despite the fact his victims were going to NMSU.
You've never heard that before?
No, sir. I have not seen that articulated in to that degree of specificity.
Gerald Byers is the Doña Ana County District Attorney.
It was the desire of the crime victims that the case should be resolved sooner rather than later.
But the victims told Target 7 they didn't understand all of the terms they agreed to.
I didn't ever understand, and I still really don't, how you plead guilty to charges of criminal sexual offense and don't register as a sex offender. I thought that it was ridiculous that he had pled guilty to multiple counts and was not going to be placed on the sex offender list.
So you didn't agree to that?
No. Not at all.
More than 2 years later, the victims got what they say was justice when one of them won a $44 million judgment in civil court.
I'm glad that everything was brought into one place and the whole story was heard, because that hadn't happened before.
But that feeling was short-lived. Less than 2 weeks later, Howard's attorney filed this motion to have him released from his probation 2 years early. A notice for hearing was filed on a Tuesday. 2 days later, they had the hearing, and none of the victims were there to speak out. Doña Ana County District Judge Driggers granted the motion.
I don't believe that was a coincidence. I have many questions as to what happened and why.
Molly McGraw represents the victims.
Under the New Mexico Constitution, when a criminal defendant has a hearing or there's other modification to their sentence, the victims are entitled to notification. That did not happen here.
I have no excuse for why the victims in this case were not notified, and I will tell you right here and right now, that responsibility rests on my office and that rests with me.
DA Byers said under the state's constitution, victims must be notified no less than 7 working days unless the judge has reason. He says it happens in his district a lot.
It's our obligation to uphold the law. And when something happens that disrupts that fabric, people come looking and they want answers, rightfully so.
And that's why the victims say that despite the $44 million verdict to one of them, justice has been lost.
I thought that I would get some sort of justice from it, but I don't feel like I have.
DA Byers tells us he's been in contact with the Attorney General to see if he can appeal Howard's early release from probation. He also wants clarity about whether in the future, people who agree to conditional discharge should have to register as sex offenders. For Target 7, I'm John Cardinelli.
We reached out to Judge Driggers. His staff tells us he won't speak about the case. If you have a story for Target 7, call the tip line 505-884-6347, or you can email newstips@koat.com.